LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. This is my November reading wrap-up. For those of you who didn't see my post on my community tab, at the very beginning of November, I had a scheduled, expected major surgery, and I spent November recovering from that. I'm still recovering from that. I didn't enter November with any firm reading plans. I wanted to see how I was feeling and go from there. That said, I still have some things to talk about for this month. The first is an eARC that it was like a last minute acquisition by Olivia Atwater. She wrote the Half a Soul Regency fairy tale series. When I saw she has a new book coming out in a similar vein, I immediately requested it. It's called Witchwood Knot, and it is her take on a gothic story. So of course there's going to be this creepy magical manor involved. The story is about this woman who goes to this creepy manor house on the pretense of being a governor for the young son of the house. But in reality, it's because she knows that some bad, dark, kind of fey magic has been going on. And she is a magician, and she is determined to help sort out that problem. It ties in very loosely with some of the characters from her Regency fairy tale series. But this one is quite dark. Like I said, it's gothic. And there is a little touch of romance. So if you liked Olivia Atwater's other books, you should try Witchwood Knot, which is coming out fairly soon, I think. And I enjoyed reading this one because in most gothic stories, the heroine, the main character, shows up and then learns of the problem and is kind of stuck, trapped, trying to deal with it. Whereas I really liked how this character went there to deal with it. Hunter's Oath is a book that I saw recommended on Reddit. I think the prompt for the recommendations thread was something along the lines of, what are some classic feeling fantasy that you never really see talked about but that you love? So Hunter's Oath, this is a duology, Hunter's Oath and Hunter's Death, was one that was recommended. Michelle West is a pen name of Michelle Segarra, if you've read anything by her. And I expected that this book was going to be a story about these two young men who become Hunt brothers. Without getting too much into the mythology and background of the story, there is a god of the hunt, and he empowers and allows a hunter and the hunting dogs that he's attuned to hunt in the woods, provide for the people, and in turn, the god makes sure that the people flourish, they're healthy, there's good rain for the crops, all of that. But in exchange, one time a year, the sacred hunt is called, when the god hunts the hunters. Now, in the hunting packs, there's the hunter lord, the pack that the hunter lord is attuned to, and then the hunt's brother, who is from common origins and is there to help the hunter lord and kind of remind him of like the common people that they're doing this for, because they live under the shadow and threat of this death from the sacred hunt. And it has touched everyone in their society. Husbands, sons, brothers, everyone knows someone, friends, everyone knows someone that was sacrificed at this sacred hunt. This novel isn't just a story about these two young men as they become Hunt's brothers and that bond. It really branches out into a good versus evil sort of tale, and there's some other plot lines with the larger scope of the story focusing on this really cool, she's a mage, but it's not just standard call lightning from the sky sort of stuff. It has to do with time. So she walks the path of time, and she has met these main characters, but it's at different points in time. So every time she takes a step off the path and finds herself in the world, she has to orient herself to where she is, when she is, okay, why did the path put me here, what's important for me to do, is dealing with this larger plot in addition to her particular feelings for these characters. So it's a lot deeper than I thought on the surface, and the first book in the duology really is only like a third of this bind up, and I really recommend, if you're interested in checking this out, find yourself the duology, because when Hunter's Oath ends, you're really going to want to keep reading. It's definitely 2 parts to the same story. Next, I want to talk about The Hurricane War, which is a recently released adult enemies to lovers fantasy. It's about these 2 characters on different sides of a war. One is part of an expanding empire, the son of the emperor. The other is a soldier in the army that is losing. But what the soldier can do is she has this sort of light magic, which is counter to the empire's dark magic. It really made me feel, when I was reading it, like this was inspired by Star Wars, like a light side, dark side, Kylo Ren, Rey feel. Like those were the vibes I got for the story. So without saying too much to spoil it, that's the premise. And these 2 characters have a choice whether they should or want to work together to try to overcome a larger problem, or will they stay opposed. I really liked the world building elements of this one. It definitely was in a unique setting. The main characters felt mature and were grappling with really hard things. However, they're not perfect characters, and there were parts where I was like, you just need to start thinking more rationally. But 2 different sides of a war, lots of people have died, emotions are running high. That is the setup for the Hurricane Wars. I also read Bookshops Bonedust, the prequel story for Legends and Lattes. This one wasn't as cozy feeling as Legends and Lattes. There was a little bit more plot action happening, but that meant I actually liked it a little bit more. So if you want really more cozy day in the life, Legends and Lattes. This one is about Viv when she's younger, the mercenary orc. She gets injured on a job. She has to lay up in this really quiet seaside town and heal and recover while the mercenary band goes to finish the job, and winds up making friends in the town in a similar vein to in Legends and Lattes, but this one is centering on a bookshop. But there is still the threat of the enemy that the mercenaries were going after that Viv kind of remains entangled with throughout. But there's charming new characters. There's still that cozy feeling. Someone who is laid up healing, recovering from a surgery, it was comforting and kind of timely to read about a character who was also in recovery and kind of impatient about it. I want to talk about 2 sequels that I finished. I read Evershore, which is Skyward Flight #3. So it's the last novella in the Skyward Flight little mini-series that come in between the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. I wanted to read this book because Defiant, the last book in the Skyward series, came out in November. I haven't started Defiant yet, but I actually think that Evershore was my favorite of the novellas. This character is trying to learn their power, and one of the techniques to try to get better at that is mindfulness. There's this other character that's giving them like the mindfulness kind of mantra. It has been a journey for me this past year trying to practice more mindfulness in an attempt to deal with anxiety. And it does really help, but I just had to grin when I saw that come up in there. I was like, yeah, breathing exercises, they're really helpful sometimes. So I'm all finished with Skyward Flight. I'm ready to read Defiant just as soon as it comes up in my queue for the audiobook. Another audiobook I listened to was Sweep in Peace by Alona Andrews, which was the second book in the Innkeeper Chronicles. This is an urban science fiction series that takes some of the urban fantasy tropes and characters that you're familiar with, such as vampires and werewolves and stuff, but makes them aliens from other planets. The main character is an innkeeper on Earth, and it's her job when she has these guests, these otherworldly guests, to keep them safe and keep them secret. She agrees to host a peace summit between 3 factions that have been fighting this generational, really awful war. It's very dangerous peace summit because of how much enmity there is between these people. And it's a high risk to her in the end to take this on, but if she can pull it off, then the end status will raise. and she will make some necessary income. And of course, things don't go smoothly. It was another really good installment. Very emotional installment in the Innkeeper Chronicles series, and that's another one I definitely want to continue. I also briefly want to mention some historical romance that I've read. I don't want to focus on it because this is primarily a science fiction fantasy channel, but I have recently gotten into some Lisa Kleypas historical romances. One thing I really like about Lisa Kleypas' stories is her characters. You can love to hate them, they can frustrate you, and yet I still find myself kind of charmed by them and really invested in the growth of these characters throughout these stories. So I will be also reading those as well. That is where I'm at. That's what I read in November. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. Hopefully I will be back to posting more frequently now that I'm feeling better. I hope everyone has had a lovely start to the holiday season. And as always, don't forget to support your local library.